Hello everyone, my name is Luke Ripa and welcome to my review of Wrestlemania 36. Most of you surely know the ins and outs of how it came to be, but for those whose wrestling knowledge stopped at John Cena and Hulk Hogan, yet decided to click on this video anyway, it seems fair to give a quick recap on the show's background. Originally, the 36th edition of Wrestlemania was going to air from the Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay, Florida, but because of the COVID-19 coronavirus situation affecting the United States, the city and not WWE was forced to cancel the event. As a result, the show, much like their weekly programming, was moved to their training facility in Orlando, Florida, and to be held behind closed doors as the allowed built-in capacity was very limited by the strict virus prevention rules. Because of that, and to optimize time, given the looming absolute lockdown locally, the company decided to pre-tape the show and airing it on 2 nights instead of 1. A lot of controversy surrounded the situation, as a lot of people, both from inside and outside, didn't agree with the go-ahead and were hoping for Vince McMahon to push the show to a later date. An option surely kept on the table until there was no certainty as to when the hosting of sporting events with fans in attendance could be resumed. What we got is the only WrestleMania held behind closed doors, the only WrestleMania held on 2 different nights, and the only WrestleMania to be pre-taped. With that out of the way, it's time to finally review the show. Let's start with the presentation and overall feeling of the event, which wasn't that great, but certainly better than we thought. The biggest downside was obviously the lack of an audience, as it affected some matches, as we see later on, but also replays, as the commentary audio was picked up by ambience microphones. This last one thing instead is a minor complaint, but the fact the show kept its piracy theme without anything remotely pirateish in the set aside from the giant logo clearly gave the show a weird feeling. Didn't expect a sudden change obviously, as I don't think changing such a thing was priority for WWE, and it shouldn't have. I was not surprised by having the same open cinematic both nights either. Anyways, now it's time to review both night matches, ranking them from worst to best and giving them a score out of 10. First thing first, of course, we have to get the stinkers out of the way. Luckily, the stinkers are only 3, it's just that 2 of them happen to be the men's world title fights. With the Universal Championship, that was almost warranted, given the last minute change with Braun Strowman replacing Roman Reigns. What we got is exactly what to expect from Bill Goldberg nowadays, a lot of finishers, no actual fight. Here's the thing though, I am among those who do not dislike Bill Goldberg. I like him, I get why he's doing it. He still is somewhat of a draw and the chants are awesome. I didn't even blame him for what happened in Saudi Arabia against Taker. To me, if a talent knocks himself out and is allowed to continue the match, it's on management. Despite all of that, he shouldn't be anywhere near a world title. Here we got nothing but finishers, from both athletes, with Goldberg even attempting a jackhammer on Strowman after the one he gave Bray Wyatt in Riyadh. Were we supposed to believe he could do that? Seriously? At least Strowman finally is world champion. Hopefully he'll turn heel to have a monster heel run, at least that's what I hope. While that was expected, the Brock McIntyre bout wasn't. They are 2 of the best competitors on the WWE roster currently, and arguably ever. It was legit to expect a long fight, instead of another finisher fest with a couple of suplexes thrown in there. I suppose that wasn't the real plan, and the only thing we got from the original idea was for Drew to go over. However, given the circumstances, they probably opted for something like this and are going to give us the real match at SummerSlam if possible, especially given the hype created throughout this feud. Still, I was really disappointed with what we got. Both matches score a 4 out of 10 with me. The world titles deserve better, much better, not only from a fan perspective, but also for the legacy and value of the belts. The other stinker was Elias vs Corbin. As I said in my daily vlog series, I like both stars, and certainly Corbin is a future world champion once he gets better at the mic, but there was no build up to this match. That became evident when the match started, and I couldn't care less, especially with both competitors entering the bout completely uninspired. As pointless but better despite the incredibly predictable finish was Aleister Black vs Bobby Lashley. Nothing to say here really, it's just nice they're still bringing Dutch superstar I guess. The other 5 out of 10 of the show was Sami Zayn vs Daniel Bryan for the Intercontinental Championship. Surely part of my negative judgment is consequence of my expectation from a pure pro wrestling standpoint, given what both of them can do if given the liberty, but in my preview I clearly forgot about the current Sami Zayn chicken shit gimmick. As with the previous 2 fights reviewed, these also had little to no build up. After this, we get some bouts that stand on a mediocre but function 6 out of 10. First, the two tag team matches, the Kabuki Warriors vs Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross for the Women's Tag Team titles, and the Street Profits vs Angel Garza and Austin Theory for the Raw Tag Team titles. Neither are bad matches, it's just they simply got the job done with maybe a spot or two that impressed you at the moment, but ultimately will be quickly forgotten. Different story for the other match in this core category, Becky Lynch vs Shayna Baszler for the Raw Women's World Title. Here, the problem is not the fact the match didn't have its moments, it did, and potentially even memorable, but ultimately it all fell flat with that ending. Much like with Brock McIntyre, it seems WWE wanted to save some moments for a later date, and these might include Shayna winning the title. But once again, that is not an excuse. A huge letdown, but at least it ain't a finisher fest. The SmackDown Women's World Title match deservedly earned a better rating, but could have been more in a similar fashion. The match was intense and lots of fun, telling the story as perfectly as it could, with the biggest accomplishment being the fact that every single competitor had its moment to shine and came out strongly from the bout. Once again though, the ending is the reason why this match scored one rating less than it should have, ending up with a 7 out of 10. In this same score category, I have to put the Boneyard match between The Undertaker and AJ Styles. The first cinematic match of the event and the least polarizing one has a huge flaw to me, which the Firefly Funhouse one doesn't have. We never got the phenomenal 1 vs Phenom in an actual wrestling bout. While it was hell entertaining and told a proper story, with a hero ending that seemed fitting given the circumstances, and the welcome return of the biker, as an AJ Styles fan who grew up watching the dead man destroying people left and right on SmackDown, I was excited and perspective to see a proper fight between the two. This is the most objective stance I take on the card obviously, but there was no other way to go beyond a 7 out of 10 to me, even when I recognized the craft behind the match. The last and best match scoring a 7 out of 10 is Otis win over Dolph Ziggler. Another matchup properly built throughout months, it was an entertaining blast seeing it unfold. To be honest, it wasn't a great wrestling match, in that regard it was okay, but seeing Otis finally destroying Dolph with the help of Mandy Rose was awesome. Plus, the Kiss gave it a WrestleMania moment, probably the only one for both nights. That alone gives the match an extra point. Next up is the only mid-vote on the card, a 7.5 out of 10 for Edge vs Randy Orton in a last man standing match. The match completely satisfied me. It was violent, brutal, and made the most out of the empty arena setting with a good amount of trash talking and anguish. It was obviously the best attraction as it showed he still got it and opens up for future fights with people in the current roster. The biggest problem of the match was the running time, over 30 minutes. It personally didn't bother me too much, but there were many dead moments that WWE could have cut. Moving on, we only have one match worth an 8 out of 10, the triple threat ladder match for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. At first, it was supposed to be a three-way tag team ladder match, but because The Miz allegedly showed up sick at the taping, which allegedly prompted Roman Reigns to understandably call it quits, they went ahead and ended up with what we got. The match exactly matched the expectation we had by just looking at the three names involved, John Morrison, Kofi Kingston, and Jimmy Uso. This, in my opinion, is the match that suffered the most from the empty arena concept. It was full of jaw-dropping spots, it ultimately missed the odds and screams from people. Despite that, it still was a great fight and surely looking forward to see them again in a similar stipulation. We had two bouts that earned a 9 out of 10. First, let's go with the cinematic one, the Firefly Funhouse match between John Cena and The Fiend Bray Wyatt. This is the most polarizing match on the whole show. If you go on the internet, people either loved it or hated it. Personally, I loved the shit out of it. Everything was so meticulously crafted and narrated, it was just a joy to watch. People say this was John Cena's nightmare, but rather I think it was his inferno or representation of it created by the Fiend. I say that because the door John Cena uses to enter his journey has a wording on it, a clear reference to Dante's Inferno. And the whole thing is indeed a representation of John Cena's career, twisted to show only the negatives of it. That became clear to me once the NWO was brought up. In fact, the NWO eventually monopolized WCW's programming to a stalling, dull point of no return. Very much like John Cena's stay at the top stole WWE for a very long time. There were other references, of course, but to me that, as punishment to John's character, was hella brilliant. If you didn't see it, go check it out now. The other match earning a 9 out of 10 was Seth Rollins vs Kevin Owens. This double match actually earned at least a point more because it had a great build-up that started at the Raw after Survivor Series last November. Not that every match should have such a long build-up, but it's a testament at how important that could be, especially for those involved. The end result is a fight where Kevin Owens just wants to kick the soul out of the arrogant hypocrite preacher, a gimmick that Seth Rollins is pulling off awesomely, by the way. Top-notch storytelling, great moments, with the elbow drop spot being the icing on the cake. I'm actually happy to think it's not the end of the rivalry between these two. At least that's what I hope. And now it's time for the best match of the night and one of the best in WrestleMania history, the NXT Women's Title fight between Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. Among those that perfectly took advantage of the empty arena setting, this was a non-stop bout with perfect storytelling and incredible selling, with an amazing picture-perfect display of both athletes' abilities, topped off by a great use of psychology, with both women perfectly displaying win was their only option, giving a sense of urgency that fueled all the match qualities listed before. This should have been the main event of either nights, but to me it should have been the actual main event of the whole show. And I mean, if a 10 out of 10 bout doesn't deserve it, I don't know what does. Overall, WrestleMania 36 deserves a good 8 out of 10 given the circumstances, and with the 2 nights concept giving more freedom to everyone involved in terms of time. I think for the WrestleMania review that is all. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification button to watch my videos as soon as they become available. My name is Ripa and I'll see you next time.